top NBA fantasy players and breakout players to draft. Starting with scoring, aka points per game. Last season, SGA led the way at 32.7 points per game, followed by Giannis at 30.4, Jokic at 29.6, and Anthony Edwards at 27.6. Overall, everyone from last year's top 10 list is a pretty safe pick to go after again this year, except for Tatum and Lillard, who are both out for the year. To me, the safest bets are probably SGA, Joker, and Edwards, all elite in their prime with no signs of slowing down. Riskier picks include KD given age and availability, and Giannis since the trade could put him alongside scorers who could cut into his touches. Tyrese Maxey barely missed the top 10 because he didn't play enough games due to injury, but he averaged a career-high 26.3 points per game. If he stays healthy, he has the talent to lock himself into the top 10 this year. Of everyone outside the top 10, I'd probably say Tyler Hero might have the best shot to break in. He's coming off a career year averaging nearly 24 points per game, still young, and with Miami making no big moves, he'll likely be their go-to option this year. Players that finished outside the top 20 with upside to be the biggest risers in scoring includes Victor Wembanyama, averaged 24.3 points in his second season but is only getting better and is very likely to set new career highs across the board in year 3, especially if the Spurs give him an even bigger role. Jalen Williams of the OKC Thunder averaged 21.6 points last year and only 23 years old. He's shaping up as a multi-category fantasy threat who should carry momentum from his strong season last year and the championship run. Michael Porter Jr. of the Brooklyn Nets could be a sneaky breakout player in scoring. No longer the third option behind Joker and Murray, he'll likely have a bigger role in Brooklyn and could push 20 to 23 points per game for the first time in his career. Sharp of the Trailblazers could be another deep sleeper to go after for scoring. Being so young, he's improved his scoring each of his first 3 seasons and is now one of the key offensive options in Portland's offense. With a bigger role, 20 points per game is very realistic for him in year 4. Triples. Unlike points per game, I think this category is a little bit harder to predict as new players and non-elite fantasy players make the top 10 every year. Only 2 players averaged more than 4 triples per game last year. Steph Curry led the way at 4.4. Edwards wasn't far behind at 4.1. Beyond that, only a handful even cracked the 3.5 plus per game range. Out of everyone in the top 10, I would say the safest bets going into this new season are Curry, Edwards, Mitchell, and Tyler Hero. Because not only do they pile up threes, but they also give you strong production across points, assists, and steals, making them well-rounded fantasy players. When it comes to risers, Kobe White stands out for me. He quietly averaged 2.9 triples per game while playing 74 games for the Bulls and is just 24 years old. His role could keep expanding this season. Another name to watch is Anthony Simons. He hit 3.1 per game for Portland last year, and with more offensive freedom, he could easily average closer to 3.5 triples per game. For deep sleepers, I like someone like Sam Hauser. He finished 39th at 2.3 triples per game, but that's after a major jump from the year before. And with Jason Tatum out, Boston could lean on Hauser's spacing and he could easily move up into the 2.7 to 3.0 range. A younger player to watch is Keontae George. He was 24th with 2.6 triples per game as a rookie for Utah, and with another offseason of development, he could flirt with 3 triples per game this year. Do keep in mind that bigs rarely crack the top 40. Only Miles Turner and Naz Reid hit 2.2 per game last year. That's why a stretch big like Lauri Markkanen is very valuable, giving you guard level 3s along with strong boards and percentages. You might also want to keep an eye out on efficiency swing players like Jalen Green, who hit 2.9 triples per game at 34%, and Jordan Poole 3.5 triples per game, but very streaky as well. The bottom line is, after elite players like Curry and Edwards, there's still plenty of value in players like Simons, Kobe White, Hauser, or Keontae George could help you win this category as well. Steals. This is another super rare fantasy category that usually dries up fast in most drafts. Last season, only 1 player in the entire NBA averaged over 2 steals per game. Dyson Daniels at a ridiculous 3 steals per night. After him, the next tier dropped off quickly with only 5 players averaging 1.7 or more. and just 10 total players clearing 1.5. If you had one of these top tier guys on your roster, they might have single-handedly won you the steal categories every week. But notice how you can't really get the best of both worlds with most of these high steal players. Out of everyone in the top 10, you could argue that at least 4 of those guys aren't elite fantasy options in most standard leagues. They often come with deficiencies elsewhere, whether it's scoring, assists, rebounds, or shooting efficiency, making this one of the trickiest categories to balance on draft day. When it comes to risers, I would probably keep an eye on Thompson of the Pistons. He averaged 1.7 steals as a rookie, showing some pretty good elite defensive instincts. With more minutes and a full season of experience, he could easily jump to 2 steals per game this year. Another streaky riser is Jalen Williams, who put up 1.6 steals per game last year for OKC and continues to grow into a key two-way threat at his age. For deep sleepers, a young rookie like Coulibaly already showed flashes, averaging 1.3 steals per game in limited minutes. If Washington does give him a bigger role, he could quietly become one of the best late pickup for steals. Also watch out for someone like Keon Ellis of the Sacramento Kings, averaging 1.5 steals across 80 games. He might not have any fantasy hype, but he could definitely give you top 15 production in this steal category. Looking at positional trends, steals is mostly dominated by guards and wings, but there are a few forwards and centers who stand out. Joker finished second at 1.8 per game, which was very unique because most big guys rarely show up this high, and if he continues to produce at this level, it makes him that much more valuable as a fantasy player. Bottom line is Dyson Daniels is in a tier of his own. If you can land him, you're almost guaranteed to win steals most week. But even if you miss out, there's plenty of upside in young wings like Thompson, Jalen Williams, Coulibaly, plus very safe bet picks like SGA and Joker, who provides value across the board as well. Rebounds. Unlike steals, rebounds are a little bit easier to find. Last season, 20 players averaged at least 8 per game. But if you're hunting for elite rebounders, only 10 averaged 10.1 or more, and just 5 clear the 12 plus mark, led by Sabonis at 13.9, followed by Karl Anthony Towns and Joker at 12.7. One thing that doesn't change is that high rebound guys are usually bigs who live around the basket. In fact, none of the top 10 were known as high volume shooters, so if you decide to load out on boards, you're likely sacrificing some triples along the way. The good news is that rebounds are one of the most predictable fantasy categories. Year after year, names like Sabonis, Joker, Giannis, Rudy are fixtures in the top tier. It's rare to see newcomers crack the elite list unless they're handed starter minutes from day one. With that said, a few risers might be someone like Jalen Duren, who averaged 10.3 rebounds at just 21 years old, and it feels like it's only the beginning for him. Alperen Şengün also finished with 10.3 per game and continues to take on more responsibility for the Houston Rockets. Another name you could watch out for is Scotty Barnes at 7.7 boards per game. He set new career highs, and if he takes another step forward, he could realistically push into the 9 to 10 range. Further down, there are some exciting young sleepers in this category. Amen Thompson averaged 8.2 rebounds as a rookie guard wing, which is almost unheard of at his position. Keegan Murray at 6.7 and Denny Avdia at 7.3 also provides as versatile forwards that keep you competitive in rebounding. And then there's Josh Hart, who continues to be one of the biggest fantasy unicorns. At just 6'4", he grabbed 9.6 rebounds per game last year, ranking 13th overall in this category, ahead of many legit centers. Having a guard who can give you near double-digit boards every single night is a huge advantage. Very few fantasy teams will have this advantage this year. Assists. Assists are one of the most important but also one of the rarest fantasy categories. If you don't grab a high assist guy early, it's almost impossible to stay competitive here. Last season, only 2 players averaged double-digit assists. Trae Young at 11.6 and Joker at 10.2. Beyond that, just 4 players cleared 8.5 assists per game, and only 7 total reached 8 or more. That is how thin this category is. If you were lucky enough to get 2 to 3 elite playmakers, you basically had the assist category locked down every week. Guys like Trae Young, Joker, Cade Cunningham, and James Harden are probably the safest bets to go after heading into this season. And once again, Joker and Sabonis stands out as fantasy unicorns in this category. They're the only bigs who can give you elite assist numbers while stuffing the stat sheet in other categories. Looking at risers, Cade Cunningham is the one to watch for me. He jumped to 9.1 assists per game last season and looks every bit like a future top 3 passer in the NBA. Jalen Brunson and Josh Giddey also has room to climb, Both are being asked to shoulder more on the offense and could flirt with 8+ assists per game this year. For younger sleepers, I like someone like Isaiah Collier of the Utah Jazz. He averaged 6.3 assists per game in 71 games, ranking 16th overall. At just 20 years old, he's already running Utah's offense, and he could realistically push into the 7 to 7.5 range, which could put him on the edge of being a top 10 assist guy. One thing to note, almost every player who finished in the top 20 in assists last year was a must-roster player in most 12-team standard leagues. Bottom line is that if you don't get one of those guys like Trey, Joker, Cade, or Harden tier early, you could be chasing this category all season long. Blocks. Blocks are somewhat of a dying fantasy category with very few elite players to go after. Last season, Victor Wembanyama was on another planet, averaging 3.8 blocks per game, the only player in the NBA to average over 3 per game. Behind him, only 4 players cleared 1.9 blocks or more, including Walker Kessler, Miles Turner, and Brook Lopez. That means if you had one of those top 10 shot blockers on your roster, you were instantly competitive in this category every week. Wemby in particular was so dominant that he could single-handedly win you matches by himself in blocks. Meanwhile, I think there's a new wave of shot blockers coming ready to take over, including guys like Donovan Clingan, Evan Mobley, and Alexander Czar. They are excellent dynasty or keeper league targets because their block production should only rise with heavier minutes and more NBA experience. Proven names are also pretty safe bets. Rudy Gobert and Miles Turner have been locked in the top 10 to 15 range for nearly a decade. And while they may not carry the same fantasy upside as someone like Wemby, they still remain reliable fallback options if you don't want to miss out on elite blocks. Looking further down the list, there are some unique unicorn type players who stand out because of their position. Derek White, for one, has been one of the rare guards to average at least 1 block per game for several seasons. Having a backcourt player can chip in a block per game is a sneaky good way to swing this category. SGA is another example. Alongside with elite fantasy stats, he quietly added 1 block per game last year, making him one of the few guards who can combine scoring, assist, steals, and block all at once. For young sleepers, I would probably keep tabs on Amen Thompson and Zach Edey. Both are still developing, but their defensive instincts suggest that they should be able to crack the top 20 sooner or later. Peyton Watson of the Nuggets and Missy of the New Orleans Pelicans are 2 under-the-radar names with defensive upside if they're able to carve out steady roles on their team this year. Also, don't forget about that Ware kid of the Miami Heat. He averaged 1.1 blocks per game in 64 games. If Miami decides to increase his role, he has all the tools to climb into the top 15 as early as this year. Do you agree with everything I said in this video? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to watch more of my crappy videos, then subscribe.